Kevin and Lani Coltys from Queenscliff, with questions asked by their grandson Tanner Coltys.
What did the main street of Queenscliff look like?
In the 50s there was very little traffic going up the street. It was nowhere near the amount of cars now. It was very quiet. The street itself, there were a lot of guest houses, weren't there?
Major guest houses, which is a big part of the borough in those days. Very busy. A lot of people came down camping,
and there were a lot more shops down the Swan Bay end, down the hill, than there is now. There were no supermarkets in town. There was a milk bar on the bottom corner,
and
wasn't
a
there?
hairdresser,
Yeah,
and a grocer.
Yeah, and most people lived over the top of their shops. There were little buildings over the top of their shops in the rooms, and that's where they lived. There was Whitehall Guest House.
That was very busy.
On the road, there were big, large gardens that opened up onto Hesse Street in those days, right on the hill. There was a dry cleaners next to where the Vic Hotel is now, and opposite there was the Osprey Guest House and big tennis courts near the guest house. You had to step down, they were sunken, they were very low, but 2 or 3 big tennis courts that belonged to the guest house.
And they put big lights in which made night tennis a bit of a rarity back in those days.
There was a dentist down there and a barber where everyone got their hair cut, and a grocer and a hamburger shop.
All down the bottom of the hill, down opposite the Vic.
And then there was a dairy. We had our own dairy, and milk used to come from the cows out along the road, and then they'd bottle it up at the dairy and deliver it to all our front doors every morning. So you'd get your bottle of milk out the front.
Which I used to help out sometimes when the Carmichaels were there, go and pick up the milk from the dairy farmers around the Bellarine Peninsula. There was a baker next door, which was very, very popular. They
baked their own bread, so everybody used to buy their bread there. You didn't get that at the supermarket like you do nowadays.
Wilson family.
And then there was a butcher.
The butcher next door, which was...
Where you worked also for a little while after school.
Bob Thompson.
We had a hardware store where you bought all your hardware.
And that was Alan Thompson Hardware. No relation, I don't think.
And then there was another milk bar. There are lots of milk bars in town. Another milk bar on the corner of Hesse and Hobson Street, opposite where the Grocers is now. There was a billiard room there too, where everyone used to go to play billiards, because you never had your own billiard table in those days. You had to go and pay money and play billiards. What else?
We should have mentioned Vue Grande, because that was a big.
In the middle of the street, the Vue Grande, and then the post office.
Right opposite the post office.
And in the post office, they used to have, people didn't have their own telephones mostly in the 50s, so there used to be lots of telephone boxes there where you'd go and you'd pay for your phone call and open a little window in the post office, and the telephonists there would charge you for the phone call and book your number.
I used to work there
you worked there too.
And as a mail boy. Telegram boy.
And up the top there was a delicatessen, and they put a donut machine in the window. That was a really big deal. When we were in the 50s, donuts were only in America in those days. So and then they had this machine out the front that they made donuts. We used to stand at the window, and that was our entertainment, looking in the window while they made donuts on this machine.
And we had our chemist, of course, and news agents and
Eddie George, that's all there now, the shop, Eddie George shop that's open. He was the draper. Then there was a paper shop, an estate agent, the SEC office.
Office.
And a milk bar where all the teenagers hung out. Used to hang out and play the jukebox and drink Blue Heaven milkshakes. Yeah, that was.
And right up the back beach, past
the bowling club and the RSL.
There was a big kiosk, which the younger ones used to hang around, because it was probably the only one of the 2 places to go before it got burnt down. So
back in those days, all the rough kids, we were Bodgies and Widgies. That was really cool in those days. They were called Bodgies and Widgies. They used to hang out up there. But that was, very different to nowadays.
What did the main street of Point Lonsdale look like?
We didn't go to Point Lonsdale very often. That was a long way away in those days, so there weren't very many shops, were there? The times that we went, there were only a couple of shops where the shops are now, and there was
one right up the top,
a milk bar right up where Ripview comes out now. There was a milk bar there on that corner. But yeah, we didn't go to Point Lonsdale very much at all as
so
kids.
None of us went there really. We just hung around Queenscliff, played around Queenscliff. So we didn't really. But it was very quiet. It was Point Lonsdale's always been very quiet. A lot of retirees came down, and that's been the same right through up until now.
What kinds of job did the borough residents do?
Oh, there was quite a few really, wasn't there? One of the biggest was the fishing industry, which Lani's dad was a fisherman all his life. That was very big. There was a lot of boats worked out of Queenscliff. Mostly
catching cooter, and they used to. There was another pier in those days down there where the flat is, in between where the ferry is and where the new pier is, and that's where the fishermen used to bring all their fish into there, and then they'd put them on a train. The train used to come all the way down the pier, all the way through the flat and down past where the museum is now, and down the pier, and they used to put the fish on those and take them to Melbourne to sell them. So fishing, a lot of people were fishing.
So we had the SEC, the State Electricity Commission, that was in the main street. That employed quite a few, and the PMG, which was the telephone lines. That was a big, quite a few employed there. And over the Swan Island, where my grandfather used to work, that was probably employed 40 or 50 people.
Lots of people worked over there making mines at Swan Island. A lot of people worked in the shops because there were lots and lots of shops back then.
There was, up the fort.
And the post office, a lot of people worked in the post office on the telephones. On the telephone exchange, back then. Your father worked on the pilot boat.
The pilot boat was always employed a lot of people.
The army.
The sewing down the bottom.
Oh yes. Some people used to make you clothes then. You didn't go to a shop much and buy it, they made you clothes. And the army.
And the army. And we had banks.
Oh yeah, people.
We had 5 hotels. We had a lot of employment in the hotel industry, and
that was about it.
We had plenty of employment back in those days. You could take your pick what you wanted to do.
What did you do for fun?
Yeah, you go. What did
Wait.
I used to live down near the beach, so our house backed onto the beach at the time. So we used to build cubbies in the sand dune. We'd go swimming at the beach. We explored the cliffs under the fort. We used to climb up around the cliffs under the fort, even though we weren't allowed to. We never told Mum and Dad about that, but we used to climb around those. We used to play on the playground. Did you used to go to the playground down near the pier?
We had a playground up near our place. We had a little top of Swan Bay, and we had used to play our cowboys and Indians when we were after going to the movies of a Saturday afternoon. The movies was a big thing. Saturday afternoon movies.
And Saturday night when you got a little bit older, you get to go to the Saturday night matinee. The movie theatre was at the back of the Vue Grande Hotel. That used to be our own movie theatre there. Popular, so I used to get all the latest movies back in those days. I used to play in the playground, used to be allowed to go over. There was a playground at the beginning of the pier, where the pier is now, but we thought it was a really big deal. We had a swing and a slide and a seesaw, and that was it. But we used to play for hours over there. When we got a bit older, we used to hang out at the milk bars in the main street. That used to be the hangout for the teenagers.
I was pretty lucky. I lived up near the Church of England, and there was 6 or 7 locals, and we played our footy and cricket in the ground, and Guy Fawkes Night on top of the hill.
We used to have bonfires once a week, once a year.
Because there wasn't any made road up there at that stage. And
I went square dancing in the... once a week we used to have square dancing, and where the RSL hall up there wasn't as big as it is now. It was an old hall. You played football.
Played football. there was a lot of dance. I was a little bit older than my wife, and we go to the dances, and it was Saturday night at the town hall, and then they started at the RSL, so that was very popular. They started midnight to dawn dances.
I wasn't old enough to
You weren't
go.
allowed to go out those days.
That's about it.
But yeah, we
Simple
filled in
pleasures.
simple pleasures. Fishing, I used to go fishing down there. Used to have a lot of, one of the Priddles used to have a lot of boats you could hire. That was very popular. We'd always go out in one of them. We'd always find something to do, wouldn't we?
Yeah. Yep.
No, that was about all.
Not together. We didn't know each other
No,
back then.
no, not those days.
At the time, what was your favourite place in the borough?
Well, mine was, I guess, behind our house, right down the bottom where the harbour is now, a fisherman's flat. We lived right down the bottom, next to actually where the used to be a big boat shed where they made all the boats, the fishing boats, and all my dad's boats were made there. And we used to hang out there around the back of the boat shed, and also behind our house. You used to build cubbies in the grass and in the sand dunes, and we used to have fires, which you wouldn't get away with nowadays. We used to build fires and light fires and cook potatoes on the fires. It was really a big deal. We used to swim at the beach. That was out the back of there was my favourite place.
Yeah, my favourite, the cliff's just up near our place, because that's where the train used to go, and we used to play down around the railway sheds. There was people, we had friends down the bottom. It was all railways down the bottom, and pretty much at home, apart from swimming up the back beach.
Yeah.
A lot of time swimming up the back and the front beach, but mainly the back beach. But that was mainly all up there. Very lucky to have a good place to play.